What is the best thing about roller coasters? There are so many factors that go into what makes a roller coaster truly great, and one of them is theming. So today, I'm going to be talking about the 10 best themed coasters I have been on. Starting out with an honorable mention, Mammoth at the Italian Gardaland. It was very hard deciding whether or not this actually deserved the number 10 spot, so I still wanted to talk about it, as it almost ties with the first entry to the top 10. This ride is of a Koa Mark 900 mine train from 2008, themed to the latest ice age. The ride is super long and has an entire 3 chain lift hills to complete a circuit. The track snakes around all sorts of artificial rocks and glaciers, creating a sort of ice age atmosphere. Plus there are pine trees and realistic woolly mammoths around the course to give an extra feel of yesterday. The train-styled cars also fit in, as the theme seems to be based on the 20th century technology being trapped in the past, as you also see a crashed airplane. The mountains themselves give a feel of Disney, and it kinda reminds me of Expedition Everest, so props to Gardaland for this awesome prehistoric work. At number 10 is Rutsjebanen in Tivoli Gardens, Denmark. This scenic railway by Valdemar Lebeck is currently the third oldest operating roller coaster in the world, dating back to 1914. This woody is loved for its surprising airtime and smoothness, as well as the beautiful mountain theming swallowing the entire ride. In fact, these mountains are basically the structures of a coaster in themselves. However, they did not always look this impressive. Just a couple of years ago, the mountains only looked like big rocks, and there was nothing impressive about its look. But on its 100-year anniversary in 2014, it received brand new snowy mountains as well as a theme station and other theming throughout the ride. This ride truly gives the sensation of being in the Alps, plus a night ride on this is extremely beautiful. As a quick fun fact, this ride actually used this kind of theming ages ago before it had the boring rock structure it did before today's theming. And as Sean from Theme Park Worldwide says in his Tivoli Gardens vlog, the old theming inspired Walt Disney himself for the world's first steel tube roller coaster, the Matterhorn bobsleds. Moving on to number 9, we have Crazy Mine at Germany's Hansa Park. This park is well known for their awesome theming on their rides, as seen on this Maurer Wild Mouse coaster. While the ride itself is pretty rough and uncomfortable, the theming is awesome. Themed to the mines of the Wild West, this ride is complete with Western-style buildings as well as rockwork and animatronics of great quality, which is what gives it the upper hand on this list. The animatronics truly give a great vibe of the coaster, and it's actually able to take away from the unpleasant ride experience. Now, while this ride is really well themed, spoiler alert, this isn't the only ride from Hansa Park on the list. Coming in at number 8 is Eurofighter, located at Djurs Sommerland, Denmark. In form of an intimate family launch coaster, this thrilling ride is more wild than you'd think. That goes for both the ride and the theming, as the trains are themed to ATVs, which is used to blast through the jungle at up to 80 km an hour. The layout goes through a ton of plant life, plus a few stone structures and other jungle theming. Plus, the ride's got a story, which is about a jewel having been stolen, with you needing to get it back. The story is explained in an awesome pre-show in a highly themed room with music, light effects, and an epic voiceover. In my mind, a pre-show like this gives a huge boost to the theming, though this is one of the most themed points of the ride, including the station and the queue line. So even though it feels absolutely epic, it's still overtaken by our number 7 spot, which is Raptor once again at Italy's Gardaland. This ride is a wing rider from Bolliger and Mabillard. In fact, it's the first one ever made, making it a prototype, and even though it's a prototype, they did not hold back with it at all. The ride starts out with a dive straight towards the pathway below it, which by the way is an amazing drop on the back row. Then it turns around, does its first inversion, and from there it is low to the ground action with a ton of great theming, including some amazing near-miss elements. Speaking of near-miss elements, this ride is packed with them. They are all over the place. Even the last inversion alone has an entirety of 4, and they are all part of the amazing theming. The theme itself is about a creature, which is what the train resembles, that is broken out of a facility and is on a rampage. And you definitely feel like you're on the wings of that creature when you plow through the amazing apocalyptic theming. At number 6 is Polar Explorer at the world's first Legoland park, Legoland Billund, Denmark. This ride is quite short and is a family coaster as well. But don't let that fool you. This ride gives some great forces through snowy rockwork over snowy terrain. This ride's train resembles snowmobiles, which adds to the tundra theme, but what had the biggest impact on me regarding the theming and the overall experience was a freefall drop that the Sierra elevating seating coaster has installed near the end. Inside the ride's biggest mountain structure, you watch a small video of 2 Lego figures climbing an icy hill, as one of them drops their pickaxe in the ice below them, dropping it through the surface. As this is shown, the track you were on drops below you as well, simulating that you were on the same ice. For me, that adds a lot to the theming, as it actually interacts with the ride. As a final act, the ride also passes some Lego animal figures, and the final brake run is right next to the penguin bay, giving you a view of actual real-life penguins. First entry to the top 5 is the first futuristic coaster of this list, Oblivion the Black Hole at Gardaland, Italy. Out of the 2 B&M dive machines I have ridden, this one is my favorite by far. While the only differences in the layout is the extra helix and heartline roll on this coaster, the theming is also way more extreme than Kake, which is the other one I've ridden at Heide Park, Germany. When you go to ride this, one of the first things you notice is the incredible queue line. In order to talk about this ride's theming, let me first explain the ride's plot. As CoasterBud explains in his video, What is Oblivion the Black Hole? A wormhole has appeared in the park, and a team of brave riders must adventure into the wormhole to learn more about it. The queue line is then themed to a sort of training facility, which by the way is absolutely incredible. It feels epic. Besides this, the bottom of the main part of the ride, the dive, is supposed to be a black hole, which features a ton of theming, including things being sucked into the hole itself. The theming gave me an absolute blast in itself, and it is a really clever way of taking advantage of the concept of a dive coaster. Number 4 is the second entry to Hansa Park, the Gerstlauer family coaster, Die Schlange von Midgard. While this ride is quite small for its model, I assure you it does not disappoint. While the actual coaster itself is a fun ride on its own, its theming is also just a perfect cherry on top. First off, the queue line has amazing theming, which includes music and animatronics. It gives a great feel of excitement for what's to come, and I even remember getting a bit of water spit on me from one of the animatronics. When you then start the actual ride, you are introduced to the Norse god of them all, Odin himself. This is part of a pre-show, and to me a pre-show gives a great boost to the level of theming. On top of this, the rest of the layout is also filled with awesome theming, and you definitely feel like you're on the wild waters battling with the Midgard serpent. The whole ride's theming is just awesome, and it gives such charm to the little family coaster. I'd certainly say that this is a must ride of the park, even though it might just be a small family coaster. First of the top 3 is going to be Dragon in the original Lego park, the Danish Legoland Billund. Like all the other Legoland parks, this one also has a dragon coaster, but unlike some of them, this one is a powered coaster from German manufacturer Mag Rides. As some of the other dragon coasters, this one starts out with a dark ride section, where you go through the massive castle the ride station and queue are also in. Speaking of the castle, that thing is incredible and really awesome. Even the queue line is just fascinating to stand in, and it truly shows dedication when it comes to the dark ride section, which is the most themed part of the ride. You also get to see all the characters of the castle in incredible fashion. It is so well made, and as a theme park enthusiast, I'm most willing to say I enjoy the theme park more than the outside section, which is where the thrills are at. As a bonus, since this is a powered coaster, the ride doesn't need a lift hill for its outside section, and instead, the powered rails launch the coaster out of the castle like you're an actual dragon going berserk. Number 2 is a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, that being Flug von Novgorod in Hansa Park, Germany. This ride is all about the theming, and besides Japan's Takabisha and its future American clone, this is probably one of the best Eurofighters you will find. While the queue line has awesome theming, the ride itself starts out with a pre-show with holograms and epic opera music that really sent a chill down my spine. Afterwards, you head down towards the launch, which by the way is the most forceful launch I have ever experienced, and I love it to bits. Now after the launch, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of theming. However, some Germans say that the entire layout is actually part of the ride's storyline. Unfortunately, I don't speak very good German, so I can't explain the storyline and confirm that. Nonetheless, every bit of the layout is awesome, even the non-inverting Batwing, which is surprisingly forceful. After the brake run, you will encounter the iconic vertical lift hill in the complete darkness. Though unlike a normal Eurofighter, this one halts around halfway up, where a holographic character then explains part of the storyline. Afterwards, you plummet down the 97-degree beyond vertical drop in the complete darkness with a few artificial lightning bolts. And because of the theming and darkness, this is probably my favorite roller coaster drop, end of story. So since the theming itself interacts with the ride, and since it's so incredibly epic, this ride definitely deserves a spot, only being behind the number 1 spot, Hansa Park's very own Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster, Der Schwur des Kärnan. As Gerstlauer's first and currently only hypercoaster, this incredible ride is a great candidate for the world's best roller coaster experience. not only because of the intense and amazing ride it gives on its outside part, but also because of its intense theming dedication into its story. The theming is based on an actual tower in Sweden, except the one they made for this coaster seems to be even taller than the real one. At the bottom of the tower you will find the ride station, as well as most of the queue line, which is located underground in an incredibly realistic castle setting, plus a bunch of flat screens explaining the ride story. Now I won't explain the ride story, but if you're interested to hear more about it, I suggest going over the Coaster Bots video covering the topic. After you've been through the queue line, you will reach a staircase at which 6 people are allowed to go up at a time. Those 16 people will then enter a room in which your row will be chosen. That's right, on this coaster not only aren't you allowed to choose your own row, you're completely incapable of doing so. The 16 people will then split up into 4 rows where an awesome sequence full of music and lights will take place. Then the floor beneath one of the rows will glow and a door will open to a completely random row of the ride, the same happening with other 3 rows afterwards. It is an awesome method of receiving your seat, and if you happen to get a good row, it feels amazing. I remember deciding that this was my absolute favorite coaster even before sitting down, and we haven't even got into the actual ride itself yet. You see, when your train dispatches, you will go into the darkness with some of the most epic music I have ever heard, and you will then ascend the 73-meter vertical lift hill, still in the darkness. The next part is very much a surprise, so in case you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to skip to the time shown on the screen. The best part then comes when you reach the top and the train comes to a complete stop, intensifying the epic music playing loudly in the entire tower in which the lift hill is located in. When the music then reaches its climax, the entire train drops down backwards, giving an amazing scare. This kind of theming is part of the reason this coaster earns its spot on the list. The ride then goes up the lift hill once again, and continues its layout, starting out with a twisted vertical drop with a level of 5 G-forces at the bottom. As a final act, the coaster also has its single inversion as a surprise within the tower after the first brake run, and the epic music comes back to continue the epicness. It's hard to describe how I feel about this coaster's theming. It just makes the ride so insanely epic, and I almost shed tears after my first ride. That's how much it affected me on an emotional level. While it might be true that Cedar Point's Steel Vengeance is the world's best roller coaster, I'm pretty convinced that Kärnan is the world's best roller coaster experience. It's that good. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and be sure to write a comment in case you have something new you'd like to see on the channel, and I'll be sure to think about it. Otherwise guys, it's been Northern Rides, and I hope you all keep on riding.